So from my take on that, the only guidelines for t-shirts that I would be cautious of are not violating Vex Robotics and REC branding guidelines. So if you are going to throw a Vex logo on there, you can just email marketing I think you can find it pretty easy somewhere on their website, their marketing guy. Talk to your REC rep, and they can certainly hook you up and make sure that you're not violating any guidelines there. Yeah, I know about that, because sometimes I just do things and then get in trouble for it. And then mascots to Worlds, specific things that you need to know about Worlds, everything. Perhaps we'll get into, we're going to have a segment here coming up on getting ready for a VRC tournament or for a Vex IQ tournament. So I think we're going to switch it up.
I think some things to think about is if your school has like certain school colors, like using those same colors for your team can be helpful. That way when you're recruiting people from your school, they might have the similar, shirt colors or something like that. So following your school's colors can be good. And then having that year's logo or game name on your shirt could be good or bad. It could be bad because the next year those shirts won't be able to be used anymore. So if you do more of a generic shirt, it can be used over multiple years and people can have multiple. Or if you want to say, hey, you got to use your full volume shirt, you got to wear that this year. So.
Well, and I always appreciate that too. Seeing this guy, he's got a Sturgis 1993 shirt on, and you're like, that was a long time ago. 30-year-old shirt, dude. Nice.
Vintage things are cool, right?
Okay, let's kick off our next segment here. This is dealing with the money side of things.
All right.
So, whenever Brandy's ready.
I don't know if the mic battery is dead or if you guys can hear me. I mean, it's on. Is that better? There we go. That's good. All right. Hello, my name is Brandy Bollinger, and we are back here at the Mall of America for the VRC signature event that's happening this Friday and Saturday. I am a senior team engagement manager at the REC Foundation, covering basically the Dakotas to Maine and the upper Midwest. I am here with an amazing panel of coaches today to talk to you a little bit about creating team budgets, financing, fundraising, basically anything to do where if you would like to get a Vex IQ or VRC team started at your organization, how much money do you need to get it started, and then how much money do you need to sustain it once it's already in place? So one of the main questions that I get every day via email is, Brandy, do you have a budget template for me? Does the REC Foundation have a budget? And the answer to that question is no, not really, but I'm going to teach you how to create one for yourself. The idea is that a budget for every single team should be different because it's based on where you live, how much things cost around you, how far you have to travel, how many students on your team, how much equipment do you have, how much equipment do you need. So every person's budget is going to be different based on the financial needs of that team. So there are lots of ways that you can use your budget for. You'll hear me talk a little bit about during this presentation about 99H funding. I want to introduce a little bit of this to you. The state where I live in Michigan, we actually have a grant through the Michigan Department of Education that uses state aid funding to cover your initial team registration fee, a robot your first season, 2 competitions, all out of our state aid budget. So here in Minnesota, there actually is a bill in the House and the Senate right now to include funding for robotics teams out of your workforce development budget. So I'll talk a little bit about why advocacy is important when it comes to fundraising and having funds available. And so you can use your team budget to apply for those state aid funds or grants or anything for requesting budget or funds from your school, approaching local businesses for sponsorships and partnerships, and being transparent with the students and parents on your team about how much it actually costs to run these robotics programs. All right, so here's what we're here to do. I want to introduce you to some methods. I'm not saying that you need to copy paste this budget and make it exactly this. you need to kind of take this and make it a simplified process for creating a budget for your own team. Please realize this is not one size fits all. There's going to be things on this budget that I'm going to recommend that you're like, we don't even touch those things. And there's going to be things on this budget that I didn't take into consideration that you have to because of where you live, right? All right. And also, I'm not saying that the REC Foundation says this is what your budget has to look like. I'm just including some of the things that I get as the team engagement manager to help support teams. So what does it take to fund a team? First is miscellaneous cost. Things like team uniforms. We just actually had a question in the chat about team uniforms. So we'll talk a little bit about how much those cost and maybe printing supplies, giveaways, those kind of things. The question in the chat is 99 days. Is it only for schools or for home-based organizations too? In the state of Michigan, you have to have an NCES number and be considered either a public or non-public registered school with the state of Michigan in order to be eligible for that funding. So if you are a community-based team, unfortunately, those fundings are not available to you because they are through our Department of Education. Where here in Minnesota, I think with the workforce development, I think those funds are available to anyone that applies. Yeah, so it depends on what pool of money they're getting it from, because ours comes out of our state aid funding, where if it's coming out of workforce development, it applies to everyone within the state. Other things that you might need to fund your team, field and game elements. If you are going to be a team that has a field, you get to buy that once and then replace your game pieces every single year. If you're an event partner, you might have multiple fields and multiple game sets that you're playing for. Organization registration fees. So depending on how many organizations you have within your program, you're going to have your $950 flat registration fee once or multiple times, or less than that if you have fewer than 7 teams. Your tournament registration fees and travel costs. Again, this is going to depend on how far are you going, how many tournaments are you going to, what kind of food do you need to provide, and do your students have to stay overnight at a hotel while you're at these events? And then upgrade and replacement parts. This is usually the one that veteran coaches kind of need to worry about each year because things break, things get used, especially if you're coaching a VRC team. Metal gets bent, used, cut, maimed, you know. Where with IQ, you might have students who are a little bit harder on the electronics and motors, so you're replacing those kind of things more often.
Yeah, and I think I'll interrupt you too, because I think even if you are a new team though, that might be something to consider to have. If you say you have 4 teams, it might be a good idea to have an extra electronics kit, or
Absolutely.
maybe even 2, because it's unfortunate when one of those go down. Plus you might need extra batteries, things like that.
Absolutely. All right, so when you're creating a budget, there's 4 things primarily that you need to think about, and we'll go into each one of these in detail a little bit more. So I like to create a budget packet. For me, it's not just an Excel spreadsheet that says how much money I spent on things. To me, my budget packet is a way for me to advertise the accomplishments of my students. It's a way for me to recognize previous sponsors or partners that I have had on my team. It is a way for me to advertise to my district the great things that my students are doing and share what our mission and vision is for our organization. Yes, it's a budget, so you're going to have the expenses that you incur on there. But something else that I include in there is levels of sponsorship. So the idea is, if you're going out into the community to seek donations, what are the levels that you recognize those sponsors at, and what are the perks for donating additional funds? And then lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of recognition for the students. Again, this is a student-centered organization. Everything should revolve around the fact that all of this money that you're raising is going to them to provide them with opportunities. So the more that you can work with your students to create a packet that reflects that, the more successful you're going to be at gaining, maintaining, and increasing the number of funds that you have for your team. All right. So this examples here, I kind of took a previous budget sponsorship packet that my students on my team created and kind of IQ-ified it for you guys. I used a program called Canva to make this. if you are an educator, there is a free license for Canva that you can use at canva.com. All you have to do is have an educational email address and apply for it, and you can use it. My team pays $119 a year to get the pro version so that we can make videos, we can make social media posts, we can make all sorts of things that also gain us additional sponsorship. I will tell you that $119 has been more than twice, 3 times, 4 times over paid for because we're using it to advertise what we do. So you can go in and create it. There's templates for different kind of things. You can just create like a brochure if you want. And the number one thing is put your students' faces on it. Of course, get permission from your parents to put your kids' faces on things. But think about like if you go to your, local Dairy Queen or wherever, if you guys have those, right? You guys have Dairy Queen here in Minnesota? Yeah. They're famous for like sponsoring like the T-ball team, right? And you go in there and what do you see? Pictures of the T-ball team all over the wall. I want it to be pictures of the robotics team all over the wall. So in my budget packet, the first page, the cover page, is always pictures of my students. Pictures of my students being happy, pictures of my students building robots, pictures of my students competing at competitions, pictures of my students brainstorming. Anything that can convey the actions that the students are doing, put that on the front cover. That is going to be an attention grabber for the first person that sees this. Next is the numbers. What do you need to include in here? And I'm going to break down kind of a thing that says what costs to think about, but just lay it out there and be like, bam, my budget is $12,000. That's what it is. That's what I need. In an ideal world, if I had this many dollars, I could do all the things that I wanted to do. Granted, more money than that's always great. I won't say no to money, but this is what we need. So I went through and created this budget for IQ teams. So basically I said here in this kind of reddish column is, the white column is number of teams. So in our 22 team organization, what are the costs associated with each one of those teams, right? So with our new flat organization fee, which is on here, starting with your 7th team is free, right? So it's $200 to register 1, $350 to register 2, all the way down to how much it's going to cost you. The next one is if you are a brand new coach and you need to invest in robots, or if you're a current organization that is growing and needs to have a robot for that team. Then your the yellow is if you're just going to register and have a team, how much, or buy a robot and register that team, how much does it cost you? And then adding on events here in the purple and pink columns will let you know exactly how much it costs. So if you're going to start one team, you have to buy a robot, you're going to register it, and you're going to go to 2 events at $45 each. You're going to need roughly $939 to get started. So a lot of new coaches see these numbers and they think, wow, that's a lot of money. But you have to remember your teal column there with your robots, that is a cost that you're going to incur your first year, and you get to reuse that robot year after year. So your costs in your pink column, your purple column, and your red column there are what you're going to incur annually. So it makes that a lot more affordable. So in the state of Michigan, if you have state aid funding, because you've advocated to your local government to get your state aid funding or your workforce development, that's how much money we get. So in the state of Michigan, if you're going to start an IQ team, you get $1,100 your first year to start a team. So out of pocket, you actually have $161 left over at the end for spare replacement upgrade parts. So like Jared said, you might want to buy a field, you might want to buy game elements, you might want to buy spare batteries, you might want to buy spare controllers. All of those costs are included over here in the gray column as additional things that you might want to get that you don't necessarily have to have in order to start a team, right? So the idea behind this is if you need to go to your school and ask for money, or you want to go out in the world and ask for sponsorships, this is approximately how much money you'll need. So, do we have questions in the chat at all yet? Okay, perfect, awesome. So I will share this spreadsheet out if you would like an actual, instead of an image of this, if you would like this actual spreadsheet so you can go on and make a copy so that you can send this out, just send me an email and I will give you access to this document so that you can have it. So I include that information. So this information on here is how I make this page here on the right, right? The one that says how much money is it going to cost me. These are the costs that I put on there. And now you might want to include things like team t-shirts, giveaways, all of those kind of things. So the question we had earlier is, what about your team t-shirts? Well, we have levels of sponsorship that I would recommend that a lot of coaches use, which is if you give X number of dollars, your team's or your company's logo goes on the back of our team t-shirts. And the more money you give, the larger logo you get. So it usually starts off with, you know, if you donate $50 or more, we put your name and text at the bottom. Or $50 or less, sorry. We put your name and text at the bottom. If you donate $10,000, we'll put your logo like this big on the back of our t-shirts.
Do you reuse your t-shirts every year then? That's the only challenge I would see with having sponsorships on the back, is if you aren't allowing students or they're not able to use them year after year.
So each year we charge a $25 fee to be on our team, so each student gets a new t-shirt every single year. So that price includes a new t-shirt for all of them. Then generally speaking, yes, that year's t-shirt has the sponsors on it, but you can still reuse it year after. The rest of it looks exactly the same except for the sponsors change on the back. So on our team, we actually call them partners, because our idea is we want every company that gives us money to earn their donation back. It's not a donation, it's a partnership. You give to me and I give back to you. So any of our like local restaurants that give funds, we go and do a demo day at their restaurant. We host a kids night. We have an open house and we bring in more customers. So like our local Bob Evans gave us like $500 and we were like, we're gonna triple your donation. So we went there and did a kids night and we earned them back like $3,800 or something ridiculous by doing one demo there one day and bringing in the interest of the community. So the idea is if you continue to do that, you are earning back the money that they gave you, and then they actually ended up making an additional donation because we helped them raise more money, right? And while you're doing this, your students are taking the robots and they're demoing there. Your students are talking to the people who come up and say, oh, tell me about your robot. They're practicing for their interview with the judges. They're taking their design engineering notebook with them and they're presenting that to the companies. They're presenting it to the people who come there, and they're increasing those interview skills that they're going to be using later on down the road. All of this packet that my team has put together, they take it to the local businesses. They're the ones knocking on the doors and saying, hi, my name is Sally and I'm with this team and we are looking for donations. Can I tell you a little bit about our team? Who's going to say no to a really cute 8-year-old with a business plan? I mean, come on. So listing accomplishments is another big thing that we do for our students. Talk about the events that they went to. We talked in our earlier session about defining what success looks like for your team. So putting that in here, saying our goal this year was to put our robot on the field for every match of our tournament, to not miss any matches. Not only did we do that, but we came in 5th place at the competition. We met our definition and then exceeded our definition for success. Putting on there pictures of your kids holding up trophies, because building robots is fun, but building robots that wins is funner. So taking pictures of that and posting it. So I don't know if you guys have any, do you guys do anything like this on your team? Have you seen any success with things like this?
So I do a number of things that are very similar to this. We have some level of sponsorships. Our levels generally associate to what we add names to. So like we have t-shirt sponsors, we have field sponsors, poster sponsors, and they have different levels of where we do that. So we do a lot of levels like that. The other thing I would say is, yeah, don't underestimate the power of having kids go in to do this. Especially, you know, like I said, I start competition at 2nd grade. And so after, I don't ask my first year students, but I ask once you've been in robotics for a year to put in a day helping with fundraising. And yeah, if you can take a student who's in a robotics shirt who has experience to go in and talk, and especially bring a robot with you, the kids love to show it off. Adults, whether they want to admit it or not, love driving the robot, and
For
so the
sure.
kids will show that. But you know, they get a lot more donations than I get for some reason when I walk into a place. But I'll generally facilitate that meeting, as far as I'll make the calls ahead of time to say, hey, I have some students that want to talk to you about the robotics program. Is there a good day after school I could bring them by to talk to you? And so I'll facilitate that. And that's a little bit better experience for the students too, because then you know that person is there and able to take that conversation with them. Because I know there were a couple times where, hey, let's stop by here. That person is available, and some of my younger students don't understand that as much as some of the older ones. And then the last thing, and you kind of alluded to that, is it is very inexpensive as part of your budget to go get a dollar frame from the Walmart or the dollar store and put a picture of your team from the state championship in that you can hang in that. And so if you go around Thief River, a number of our sponsors have things, and I actually type out, I don't do it, my wife does it, let's be honest, take a picture and it types out their accomplishments on that, you know, state participant, you know, 2-time excellence award winner, you know, kind of thing that they type out of that. And so we have a couple that have 5 years of robotics pictures hanging on their wall, and when you go back in, a lot of times they remember you because, hey, yeah, we got your pictures up here, and stuff like that. We want to do that again. So it's a very small thing, but they remember that, and then you go in and you see that hanging on the wall.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that too is, you know, doing what Robert was talking about is a great thing that you can delegate to, you know, one of those go-getter parents. And I would recommend like starting a list of things that I can have other people do to take off of your plate. And that's a great thing for a parent. Like, hey, would you be willing to go out and buy, you know, 5 of these cheap frames and get the pictures and drop them off at the businesses? Like being able to pass off some of your responsibilities on to others. As we're finding out throughout the day, there's a lot of stuff on our plate, and if you can delegate to other people these things, it's going to make your life a lot easier.
I guess I'll talk a little bit about my program and sponsorship and stuff. I'm in North Dakota, not Minnesota. Thanks, just mentioning that. My district has some very interesting rules when it comes to sponsorships. I have to get sponsorship programs approved by superintendent of my school district. And even then, the sponsorship program that I got them to approve applies to our entire district, so not my teams. So sponsorship tiers aren't included. Like I can't put people's names on the back of shirts because this is a district level sponsorship. It's really strange. And so I'm left trying to get donations. And a lot of businesses aren't interested in a donation because they can't write off the donation as easily unless I go through my foundation, which is fine. I can go through the foundation, and then the foundation takes 10% of that for processing fees and other different things that happen. So it's weird from a sponsorship standpoint, I guess, on my end. So I have to run a lot on the donation side of sending out letters to family members, to businesses where people have connections, and hoping that they'll take that kind of a situation and go, yeah, that'll work. We can make that happen. And we've had some pretty decent success at that, but definitely always looking for better options.
Advertisement.
That is something I will write in my phone after I pass off this microphone.
Yeah, so the comment from out here was some businesses, dependent on the legalese of your state, they might not be able to write it off as a donation. They can write it off as advertisement. So if you say that you will recognize them as a sponsor and you'll put their name on, even just a banner in your pit, not on your whatever else, they can write it off as advertising, and you actually get a better tax break for advertising in the state of Michigan than you do for a donation.
I guess my situation is pretty similar, kind of in between very, very small school district, not a lot of big businesses to draw from, and we have to be very careful in our school district because of our PTO kind of fundraising group, et cetera. And so one thing to think about in a small rural school district, we have a lot of wind turbines in our community, and so our township, going to our township, and they were able to sponsor us quite heavily year after year if we continue, because they see the validity of offering this for our students. And so it's just another option. And we reuse our t-shirts every year, so we don't put the sponsors on the back, but I like some of the great ideas that you guys are sharing.
And maybe one other thing I'd just throw out as ideas if people are looking out is also if you have any organizations that do charitable gambling in your area. So like commonplace are Legion Posts, VFW, different clubs like that do that. Oftentimes they have to find places to give away all of their profits or a large portion of that. They also sometimes do, your organization can do a raffle, a money raffle through their organization. So that's just, if you're looking at ideas to go out, you know, that's a place that sometimes people don't think about. You know, they're looking at businesses, can I get businesses to donate? But those organizations, some of them have a good chunk of money they have to find places to give away. And a lot of those, you know, honestly, like where I'm at, a lot of them are grandparents that love helping out the kids. And so you go in there, I know our Legion, we actually went in, they did a donation to help our teams go to Worlds. And in turn, all they asked, hey, let's bring in some robots for their club night. And we went and showed them, and we had some good pictures of the guys driving robots at the Legion. So just something to keep in mind if you have any place that Minnesota pull tabs is one of the more popular things here for that. But if you have places that do that, there's possibly opportunities there for raising some money.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to the whole partnership thing, right? Like, they're just excited to have a robot come to their Legion, right? So, and a lot of times places like that don't recognize how much money gets poured into these programs. When you start to think about travel and hotel costs and food costs, like taking kids halfway across the country to go to the World Championship, so having like a piece of paper, a budget to show them, this is how much money we need, how can you help, is great.
To reiterate on the parent aspect too, a lot of parents work for companies that have matching funds. So that's another opportunity to reach out and check with your parents. And then, is Thrivent a thing across?
It's more popular like up in the upper Midwest, but yeah.
So, you know, Thrivent for Lutherans, I know we've got parents that are part of that, and that you can apply for grants every year for that as well. So
Thrivent
there's
has
just a
tons and
myriad
tons of stuff, yeah.
different grants.
They actually have an amazing thing, Thrivent. We have it, actually our school district, which is really nice. Most of our teachers do things through Thrivent, but they have a program where if you have expenses, they will get you Visa gift cards. So as an event partner, they actually gave me $750 last year in Visa gift cards to buy food for our concession stands.
That's awesome.
So our food didn't cost us money. So that's something, and they said, you know, if we get a few more people that work with them that just write down our name, we could possibly get more to buy things, and that could even go towards parts, different things like that. But we do it as part of our tournament to help cover expenses for that.
Yeah, that's another thing. If you are planning on being an event partner and hosting an event, tie that into your perks that you're going to offer to maybe some of the businesses that are donating. I know when I was coaching East Grand Forks, we would name components of the tournament after the businesses for if they donated a certain amount of money. So we always had a perk sheet with a dollar amount for like a beginner, a middle, and advanced level donation, and what they got. And if you donated like $1,000, we'd say we would name one of the fields after your business. And there's so many components of the tournament. You can name the skills field, you can name the inspection table, you can, if you have a group of judges from Crystal Sugar or American Crystal or big company, you can name that judging group after them. And there's lots of things you can do that way to give something back to that business.
Add their logo to tournament manager and have it scroll during the tournament.
Right, and get their logo blasted out. Yeah. Oh, I was going to add another thing too. If you're in a larger community, one thing that I found out probably 3 years ago was I lived in Grand Forks, but I taught in East Grand Forks on the Minnesota side. Grand Forks is in North Dakota, but East Grand Forks and Grand Forks work together, and they have this hotel tax credit that you can go to the greater Grand Forks area and say, hey, we need some help running the event, and they have some dollars that they can help with. So your community might have something like that. They were able to provide signage for our tournaments. They were able to help with printing banners for our teams. So lots of different things that we used to have to go to the local print shop and pay for a banner to get made. They were able to do all that for free for us. So something to look into too.
Awesome. These are all really great ideas.
Well, and above everything else, if you have the capacity and the place to host a tournament and you're willing to put in that time, a majority of the costs for registering that can go to your organization. So if you can find some sponsorships and stuff to cover your expenses, that can be a good fundraiser for your team as well.
And I mean, even if you just look like mathematically at the advantages for becoming an event partner and hosting, if you're going to buy a field and you're going to buy game elements anyway, now you're going to get them half off. If you're going to have to go to, I'm sorry, oh, not for IQ, right, but for VRC, yeah. But if you are a team who has to travel to go to events, now you don't have to pay the registration fee to go to that event because it's your event. You don't have to pay to travel. You don't have to pay for hotels. You don't have to pay all those things. So in reality, not only are you like gaining fundraising by doing that, by providing concessions and keeping that, by charging the entry fee and then getting that from the REC Foundation, you are effectively reducing the amount that it costs you to run your team too. Now granted, it's a bit of work to host an event, like we recognize, like the REC Foundation recognizes that, right? But we also try very hard to provide you with the resources that you need to run an event. So maybe your first year, you go to events, you learn, you can gain a mentor in your area, somebody like the amazing Mr. Dahlin and Mr. Barker here, who are willing to teach people and guide people in the community to grow those events locally.
All right, this has been a really good discussion. I also want to shout out that, again, this is maybe geared for brand new coaches, and we start talking about event partner stuff already, like hosting your own tournaments. Like, hold on, pump the brakes a minute here. Get your teams out there, get them started, rock and rolling, and then think about being an event partner and raising monies in that fashion. So I'm going to steer the conversation back. I also want to mention that the Vex Robotics platform, Vex Robotics and Vex IQ are some of the most affordable and accessible robotics competition platforms that are out there on the market. So if you're watching this, you're already making smart budget-wise decisions about ways to get more students impacted with fewer dollars. So I think we're going to wrap up this segment, and I appreciate all of your help and all of your great ideas. Much appreciated. All right, and we'll see you guys on our next segment.